I was able to access private user data without logging in, just by changing the URL. This is called web cache deception. It's simple if you understand it properly.
So first, if you don't know what caching is, let me quickly explain it. Caching is very simple. The first time you request a page, the request goes to the server processes it and sends back a response. Now this response can be stored in something called a cache. The next time someone requests the same thing, instead of going to the server again, the cache directly serves the saved response. So basically, first request goes to the server, response gets stored, second request hits the cache, response is served instantly. Now, this makes websites faster and reduces load on the server. Usually caches are meant to store static content like CSS, JavaScript files, and images, not private or dynamic pages like user dashboard or some other sensitive pages. And this assumption is exactly what we are going to break in this vulnerability. Now, before we move further, let's understand how we even know if something is cached. We look at response headers. One of the most important headers is Xcache. If it says miss, it means the response came from the server and was not cached yet. If it says hit, it means the response was served from the cache. You might also see headers like cache control, which define whether something should be cached and for how long. For example, public means it can be cached, private means only your browser can cache it, and no store means it should not be cached at all. So, if you ever see a sensitive page being cached with something like X cache hit, that's where things start getting interesting. Now let's understand web cache deception. Now the idea is simple. A cache stores response keyed by URL path plus extension. Now what we do is we trick the caching system into thinking a dynamic page is actually a static file. Now for example, this victim, he has the session cookie, he logs in, and the attacker crafts a specific URL by appending a static file over here, as you can see, account slash profile evil css, and the victim visits the crafted URL, and the origin ignores the static file and returns the data, but the CDN sees the static file and cached response as public, so no authorization is needed at all. So, and once it's cached, anyone accessing that same URL can get that response. Now let's see this in action in my lab. Let me just log in real quick. As you can see, I can see my API key in here. And what I can do is just head over to my proxy. You can be using any proxy. And you can see this response here, right? Now this says Xcache miss. Now that means it was served from the server. Now I'll send it to replay. Now again, this says miss, right? Now I'll modify the request and append a static extension. It still says miss. Now I'll send it again. And as you can see, now it says hit. That means this response is now being served from the cache. Now to verify the impact, I'll open this same URL in an incognito window where I'm not logged in. And as you can see, I'm still able to access the same data. So just by modifying the URL, we were able to turn a private page into a publicly accessible cached response. Now in real world scenarios, it's not always straightforward. Sometimes appending a simple .css might not work. So you can try different extensions like .js, .png or others. Sometimes even adding extra paths or folders work. And in some cases, you might need to use different delimiters. For example, instead of using a normal slash, you can try something like slash account and semicolon test.css slash profile semicolon something. And here the backend still processes the slash account, but the cache sees the static file and treats it as cacheable. Once you understand this concept, you can automate this testing further. You can try different payloads, extensions, and URL variations using tools like Burpsuit, Kaido, or any proxy you prefer. The goal is to see how the backend and the cache interpret the same URL differently. And that's web cache deception. Hope you liked the video. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.